Awesome. So, since you're a photographer par excellence, right? And I say par excellence because I have seen many pictures out on Instagram, and that is what I feed off of right now. My entire feed is full of like either artists or editors or models. That's pretty. And hates me for this. Like, why do you follow models and like that? That's super.
I mean, it's honestly the Instagram algorithm. It feeds you, even if it's like it's not your fault.
So the way I start off this podcast is like for every person that I celebrate or every topic that I celebrate, I have a couple of stupid dad jokes that I bring in.
Okay.
And I let my guest guess what the answer could be. Okay? So the first question that I have for you is, why was the camera so pumped for the new year?
Why was the camera so pumped for the new year? I don't know.
Because it was finally going to reach his resolution.
that's actually a good one. Did you come up with that?
No. So this one is copied from like a website. Oh, okay. But the one that I've come up with is this one. What kind of photos do lobsters take the most?
Lobsters.
Shellfish.
Oh my god. That's good.
People, welcome to Golan's Garage, a place where we talk about facts and feelings. Today I have with me a person who I found on Instagram, and the way I found him was I went to Andrew Schultz's show. Blake also went, I just realized right now, and I was just like surfing through pictures, and suddenly a picture came out like, okay, there's a Seattle photographer who helped the entire show possible. And I'm like, okay, there's a Seattle photographer who did this, and his pictures are out of the world. And that is where I stumbled upon his profile. And just to give you an introduction, he's an artist par excellence who's into photography, videography, and I learned very soon that he's a very like, and I've never met him in person. This is the first time we're meeting, and I'm super stoked to happen. Sarthak, yay!
Thank you for having me.
Sarthak, how's your day been so far?
It's been good. A little busy, just editing photos and some video. But yeah, it's been good.
So let's just like kick the podcast off without any fluff, right?
Okay.
What's your story? Like, and the reason I'm asking this is because I have literally no idea about you. The only information I have about you is via your Instagram profile. That you're an artist, you're into videography, photography, you have a certain gear that you work with, and you take amazing pictures of Seattle and the people around it, right? So how did you start off your... let's say this is the starting of the career, right? So how did you start off? Where did you begin with? Was this a passion project for a very long time, or did this passion come along sometime during your childhood days, in your teenage? How did it come about? If you can share some insight with the entire public out there.
It's something that I've always been interested in. I've always been interested in like the arts and like kind of being a creative. As a kid, I used to draw a lot. That's how
like sketches.
Sketches and like oil paintings and stuff, like with crayons and stuff. Sometimes not as much painting, but like a little more on the sketching side, just drawing and like sometimes with colors. But that's kind of where my artistic. I don't know what you call it, but like just the creative in me kind of started. Since I could remember as a kid, that's what I did. And then somewhere along the lines, I kind of like stopped doing it. And photography and videography and like filmmaking movies was another thing that always interested in me, especially movies. I grew up watching movies. Like
what kind of movies?
Just all like I grew up watching a lot of Bollywood Indian movies.
Were you brought up here in US, or what's your story?
So I moved to Seattle when I was 15 from New Delhi.
Oh wow, where in New Delhi?
Kher.
Oh wow, dude! Like I have a couple of my relatives in.
Are you from Delhi?
No, so I'm from Jamshedpur, but a couple of my relatives are in Karol Bagh, Noida, South Delhi, every place.
Oh,
like
that's hilarious.
Sahibganj, everywhere, literally everywhere.
That's wild. But yeah, so I moved from New Delhi to Seattle when I was 15, and that's about it. Those are my two homes.
Wow, that's amazing. So after that's interesting. So when you came here, were you in your senior high?
No, I was in my high. I moved like sophomore year of high school, so like 10th grade.
Oh wow! So did you find photography and videography as a passion back in Delhi, or in US? Did you explore this option out?
It's something I was always interested in. It probably start like around that age is when I got interested in it. Around like 14, 15 is when it kind of spoke to me.
Okay.
Like I found taking pictures and like I've always been a very observational person.
Okay.
I like to
define observational.
So like I like to observe just like my surroundings and people, kind of like people watching, you could say.
Okay.
Or just also like scenery, like landscapes and like where I am, like just like the beauty of nature. It's like kind of interesting to me. So it's like it's something I've always been interested in, like since I was a kid. But like around that time, like 14, 15 was when I kind of like found it interesting to like kind of capture them in a way. And my dad, I remember, I think 2011 or something, he bought a DSLR camera on our vacation trip to like Dubai. And it was like the first like kind of like big.
And he let you play with it?
Yeah, I was the only one who used it.
Oh,
nobody really knew how to use it, because before then it was just like all those compact like point and shoot cameras, like that kind of digital cameras that became big in like the early or late 2000s. But that was like the first like kind of like big hefty camera that like our family owned. And nobody really, like my dad just bought it because like we were on vacation in Dubai, and like the guy kind of like sold it to him. He was like looking to buy a new camera, and we thought it would be like another one of those like small like Sony or like Nikon like cameras, like point and shoot, but it was like interchangeable lens and like this whole thing, and it was like okay, cool, but nobody really knew how to use it. So I was the only one who was kind of interested in and like messed around with it. But I didn't really do much with it up till honestly like couple years ago. So it's like this camera that I've had with me for like 10 years that nobody else in my family really used. I was the only one who would randomly take it out on like few trips here or there, or just like around town, but I didn't really know how to use it. I would just shoot it in auto. So
that's what I do. Like I have a DSLR right now. I went to
I
went to a shop. I'm like, okay, how do I use the auto mode? That's the only thing that I want to use, because right now my plan is to get into vlogs. This is just a start of like what I want to do. So for my vlogging, I keep like recording on my DSLR a lot. That's the reason I want the autofocus to be a very prime feature, because I don't want to like hire a videographer who can like keep following and shoot vlogs for me.
That makes sense.
And this is an interesting that you mentioned that you moved from India to US at the age of 15, right? And the reason I say this is interesting is because I come from a Desi family, and I have a vague idea of what a Desi household thought process is. They usually want their kids to be getting into a field which can help them make money, right? And you got into arts full-time last year. And this comes from a perspective of an Indian household where like if you ask me, right? Ask me 5 years ago what was the hottest profession. The hottest profession or the hottest person in the room is a person who knows technology, or a person who's like super fluent or super skilled in medical sciences.
Yeah, I would agree.
That is because like technology was booming at that particular point in time, and everyone was focused on creating things. Right now, my belief for that has totally changed. I feel the most successful person, the most hottest job in the market is that of an editor or a videographer or a storyteller. And the reason I say this is because literally any person right now can watch a YouTube tutorial and start making apps or start making technology and do amazing things with it. But what people lack is the ability to tell stories and ability to edit pictures and videos out as well. And there's something which it is like throughout the board, right? Even Kevin O'Leary and like all the big people who are in tech industries or media industries, they are promoting all their content out on the digital world, because that's the main platform. So right now you're in an age where you're one of the budding creators in this particular field, right? How much supportive have your parents been transitioning you from? You said you're from an engineering background, right? How, when you transition from that to a full-time photographer and a videographer right now, how supportive were they? Do they have a knowledge of what this avenue is, how you make money, and how big the scene can be?
So I'll answer the first part. The how supportive they were. I'm really lucky. I have like not stereotypical Indian parents.
Correct.
So they are very supportive. As long as I'm happy, they're very happy. And engineering was not something that they pushed upon me.
You were interested yourself?
Yeah, I was interested in myself, and it's something that I like. Math, sciences, like physics and math is something I was always like kind of good at in school, and that's what interested me. So it's only made like logical, like this is like kind of like logical path was to like kind of go down like okay, like kind of like eliminating my choices. Like I don't want to do bio. That's not for me. I didn't really like it. Like after 10th grade, I was like done.
Bio is not for me.
So it's like that was out, and then I didn't really see myself like going into school for business. Even though looking back at it, I probably should have done that now, especially what I'm doing now. But I didn't see it because I was just like I came from a business family. My dad had his own business in India, and that he took over from my grandpa and whatever. So like it was like I kind of came from a business family, so in my mind I was like, oh, I have that.
You have it in the genetics.
I'll probably somehow I'll figure it out. Like, you know, it's okay. So the only option that I was really left with was like kind of like tech. And going to UW. So I went to UW. Going in as my freshman year, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew that like it would probably be something in tech, just because like you said, like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when I was a freshman, that was what was booming. Tech was booming. Knowing how to code, it was really important, and it was just like also straight out of high school or straight out of college. Sorry, it's like well-paying job.
Exactly.
Like you're making
Seattle is the hub, right?
Also, Seattle is the hub. You're making really good money, so it only made sense to go in tech. But I didn't really know what in tech. Like I still wasn't sure if I wanted to do computer and like science in particular or not. But I found informatics at UW, and it was something that I kind of like really came to like and love. I took the first course, and I was like, oh, it's interesting how like information's like transferred and stuff, like all of this stuff. But UW being so competitive, I never got into that major. So my backup.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
So how does majors work in US? Like you have to, especially
so in
for
US,
bachelors.
it's very different with UW in particular. So most schools, most colleges and universities, you apply and you get into the college as well when you get into the university. But with UW, at least back then, I don't know how it is now. I've heard that it's gotten much better, but there weren't as many direct admits into your majors. So it was just a general admission to the university, and then you would apply to your college, apply to your major after like your first or second year, mostly like after your sophomore year.
And what is the meritocracy defined on? Like, is it on GPAs or?
It would be like GPA or essay. But from what I like remember, it was like I didn't get in because of my GPA. That's what the counselors told me. So the only backup I kind of had with all the classes I'd taken, because I was like almost a junior, I had applied like 3 times. I didn't get in. My only option was, with all my courses and everything, to go for electrical engineering. I was like kind of lined in, and I was like, it's not that bad. I'm still interested in it, you know? So I could still geek out about it. Like it was cool. But it was just something like along the lines I realized like it's not I never saw myself working as an engineer. It was more just like it would be cool to have that behind me, you know, like having
like a backup option, right? Or
no, just like
a fall safe option.
No, it was just like at that point it was just that was all I knew. Like I was just going for that. And at that time it was just like this is the plan. The plan is to like graduate with informatics. That didn't work out, so now the plan is to graduate with electrical engineering. And kind of work in the tech field for a few years, and then I'll figure my stuff out. It was always the plan was that I'll figure my stuff out like few days, like when I'm 28, 27, whatever.
Makes sense,
like work in the tech industry for a few years, and then like kind of like where maybe you are, I don't know, because like from what you were saying earlier, that you're like kind of wanted to get into the creative field and, you know, learn how to do that and all of that. So my
story is interesting though. Like I was super interested in computer science. Like I was born like the minute. So I remember at the age of 5 when I started coding.
You started at 5?
As in like I went to a coding class and I saw like how a couple of lines of English language can make things perform on a screen. I'm like, wait, really? That can happen? And the programming language I was using was Logo.
I remember Logo. That was my first time using
So I was like, wait, a couple of lines in English language can do this? Like, that's super interesting. And that is when I became super obsessed with computer science. So in college I had no other option. I wanted to like go for computer science. I did that. I kind of aced my college, not aced, but there were many people who were like way better than me. But I got lucky enough that I didn't have to do masters here in US because that's the traditional route, right? Do bachelors in India, do masters in US, and then get a job. I was lucky enough that I directly got a job here, so I directly flew out to US and have been here since. But I have been a funny and a creative person all throughout my life as well.
Yeah.
So I did not let that bone in me go away. I used to keep making videos, funny videos, right in my college as well,
Yeah.
during the entire time. Right now is when I've like taken it very seriously because I want to get into, as I told you, right? 2020s is the time when you have to have a media presence, you have to have a digital presence. Even pictures and boxing cards or playing cards have a digital presence in NFT.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Everything
that
is
space
converted.
is blowing up.
So that's the reason why I wanted to have a digital presence. And I was like, okay, what are the things that I'm super passionate about? I am super passionate about stories. I'm super passionate about vlogs. I'm super passionate about like just talking to people in general. So I'm like, okay, how do I align these three things in a way where I can create video content or picture content? And that is where I stumbled upon podcasts and now vlogs as well. So that's what my journey has been. So I never had to, I was lucky enough that I never had to compromise on things that I liked. I ended up doing whatever I wanted to do. And maybe it was a stroke of luck. Maybe I had like a good community around me which helped me get into that. But that was my story. So, okay, so from electrical engineering, how... In college, did you do photography?
No. So I didn't really pick up my camera and actually start learning how to use it until the pandemic.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So what prompted you in pandemic to like take a camera and like get into that media?
It was just that I wasn't doing anything.
Okay.
So I was in my senior
just
year.
like everyone else.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. But I literally was doing nothing. Okay. So I took some time off from my senior year. I was supposed to graduate 2020 fall. Okay. I would have graduated from UW.
Okay.
But I took a break like right before the pandemic hit, just because like for my health reasons, like my mental health, I was just not in a good place.
Okay.
And I was just like, my GPA was getting affected, school was getting affected, and school was always something I kind of used as like my kind of distraction.
Okay.
For my mental health. So, but it caught up with me where at a point where I was like, I can't, like, you know.
That's a smart decision which many people don't take. Like they don't have the cojones to do that.
Honestly, I pushed a lot. Like I should have done it earlier.
Okay.
And I pushed it too far because it got to the point where I didn't like engineering anymore. I didn't like the path I was on.
Okay.
I really became irritated with it. It just seemed like I was just doing something just to get the bag. You know, it was like I lost my interest and passion that at some point I definitely had, you know, like in high school or coming into college. Maybe UW was part of it too, like kind of like getting rejected 3 times.
Okay.
But I took a break for that, and I tried going back each quarter, signing up for classes, feeling like, okay, like it's been like a few months, like, and I was getting help. I got into therapy, which was helpful, but the pandemic definitely made that difficult too. So like kind of like I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a break, and then as soon as I decided that, the whole world took a break. So it just made like that process much harder to navigate through.
I totally agree.
And I tried going back each quarter, signing up, but then I would drop the classes within the first week of signing up, just because like I was like, okay, I don't feel ready. I don't want to waste money. Because my parents were paying for my college. I don't want to waste their money. I don't want to have my GPA affected, and it was like my senior year, so the classes I was in, they were really important to the field I was going to be working in. Like I was taking embedded system class that was kind of my concentration.
Correct.
So I was like, I really need to understand this. I can't just, you know,
mess around and like
mess around. Like, wait, can you curse on it?
Oh yeah, you can.
I was just making sure. I was like, okay.
Totally.
I didn't want to just half-ass it, you know. So I was like, okay, I kept doing that, but then in that meantime, that little period where I wasn't doing anything, I was like, you know what? I've had this thing in my head. Like, I've had this kind of like passion or dream or whatever you want to call it in mind to, like, you know, use a camera, like, take photos, you know? Like, take photos, start making, like, stories, like video, like movies. Like I've always kind of like had that in me, in the back of my head, like kind of like a stupid dream, like doing filmmaking. But I never saw myself kind of doing it because it was so far removed from me, and like nobody in my family kind of like is that creative. My sister is a little creative, like she did dance growing up. That was kind of it. So it was just so far-fetched and like far removed from me where I was like, I can never do it. I don't think I can. But I was like, you know what? I'm not doing anything, and I should just try. And without trying, I wouldn't know.
Correct.
So I just picked up my camera and just like started watching YouTube videos, and I was already kind of like, I think a year into like watching a lot of camera, like photography content on YouTube, following these YouTubers who like, that's what they do. Like they're
like Sam Colder and Peter McKinnon.
Yeah, Peter McKinnon, like Matty Hippoya, and like there are a few other that I've like found over the years, but like, it's like it's so cool what they do. Like Peter McKinnon's videos, they look so cool. Like how they're edited and everything. It's like a story. Like it tells a story. Each video tells a story, and it like kind of empowers you. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So I started like just watching a bunch of YouTube videos and started learning how to work my camera that I've had. And just slowly, just through that.
Is it the same Dubai camera or no?
No. Now it's not. So I switched up my gear last year.
Okay.
Because when I started my business, like when last January, I was like, okay, my mom really pushed me towards it.
Okay. So she's the hero of your story.
In a way, yeah, for sure. My mom's like the strongest woman I know, for sure.
Like that acts like a big catalyst if your family supports you. Yeah. In something that you want to do, right? Yeah.
Without her, I don't know what I'd be doing. Cause like,
shout out to you, auntie.
Yeah. Shout out to Simi Real Estate. But yeah, without her, I don't know what I would be doing. Cause like, I was like from 2015 to like 2020, I was just studying. My life was engineering. Okay. That's all it was. And it's like you studied computer science. You know how rigorous it is.
It is.
It's like
not exactly what
I mean, maybe not for you, but for me, it definitely was. It didn't come as easy to me. It definitely came easy to me compared to other people. I won't lie. You know, because I definitely half-assed my way. Okay. I didn't put my full effort into it because I was never. To look back at it, I was never really as passionate about it. Okay. It was just a means to make money. Okay. That's how I saw it. You know?
That makes sense. So I have a belief that people end up in a place for 3 reasons. A, passion, B, money, and C, survival. Okay. These are the only 3 contributing factors which put a person to a place where they are meant to be, or they are actually, right? So from things that you told me right now, right, that you wanted to do engineering because that the goal inherently was subconsciously like was money. But then you did not go through because security, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's a big part. Like you cannot deny, like, however much you say that money is not important, it actually is important.
At the end of the day, you gotta pay bills.
Exactly.
You gotta eat food. Yeah.
So right now, I feel are entering into a zone where you're more passionate about. And I really feel that if you're passionate about something, right, you'll definitely find a way to make money as well, and you'll definitely find a way to survive as well. So if you find passion in something, you can actually check the trifecta of the 3 things that I mentioned.
I totally agree.
So coming to the point where you took your first picture in the pandemic, right? Yeah. Picture taking, like, when I say first picture in the sense that first picture like professionally, when you had that epiphanous moment where, okay, this is something that I have to do, right?
It didn't happen in the pandemic. Like,
it did not?
It did not happen in the 20s. Like, during 2020.
So when was that epiphany that, okay, this is something that you want to do rigorously?
I don't know if I really had that moment. Maybe I did like sometime last year, but it was just like I'd already made the decision that this was my life, that this is going to be my life at least for the near future. Okay. So maybe I didn't notice it, but like I was saying, like my mom really pushed me towards it. Towards the end of 2020, she was like, "Hey," so my mom's a real estate agent here in Seattle. Okay. In the greater Seattle area. So she was like, "I need somebody to help me edit videos and like." Take some photos and like kind of handle my social media stuff, and I was doing literally nothing. Okay. So she's like, "If I'll start paying you, if you can do this for me." Okay. So I was like, "Okay." So I started like editing some videos for her, like her client testimonials and like a bunch of different stuff that she wanted from me. And then come January of last year, she was like, "Hey, I pay this much to a photographer for my listings that I do. Okay. And I'll pay that much to you if you're willing to do the listings for me instead." Okay. And I was like, I don't know.
You were still not sure.
I still wasn't sure because it's like I was still not in the best headspace. I would say. Makes sense, so I was like mentally still like kind of like working through the stuff I was like that was going on in my head. So I was like, okay, sure. And then I started doing that. I did the first one for her last January, somewhere like around this time. and it was okay. Like looking back at it, those photos are horrible.
Okay.
But the clients really liked them. My mom really liked them, and then I started doing that for her. I did over probably I think 15 listings for her last year overall, and then I got more work through her, through other realtors, because people started recognizing my work. So that's how kind of like I started doing photography as a business. That's when like I was like, okay, this is something I can make money from. And I am passionate about photography, not so much about real estate photography. But I did grow to like actually realistic photography compared to like the first time my mom asked me, and I was like, I don't know. But
that's not my thing.
That's definitely.
I don't want to have a mark saying that, hey, I'm a realtor. I'm a real estate photographer.
Yeah, so it's just like, but it pushed me. It pushed me to the point where I started making this my work. You know, also because like photography and like arts is like such a, like, at least I don't know, in my head, society kind of like, at least Indian people, maybe I don't know what it is in
conservative
my head.
Indian people.
Yeah, it's like something that like it's like a hobby. You know, like
it cannot be a full-time
do
thing.
that, but like also what do you do for work?
Exactly.
You know, so kind of like overcoming that challenge of like kind of dealing that internally too, like, you know, having those stereotypes and like those judgments on myself and being confident in myself and like telling people, hey, this is what I do. I'm a photographer.
Correct.
That's what I do. You know, there's no other thing. And like people judging me and like not caring about what people think.
But do people in US also judge?
A little bit, yeah, especially
Really?
especially in the field I was.
Oh,
you know, like the people I knew, like telling the people I knew that who knew me that I maybe they did, maybe they did not. You know, but in my head it seemed like they did. But it was like I was studying engineering, and that's what people knew me as. That you're this guy who's studying engineering, and you're probably that's what you're gonna do. So going back in that circle and talking to my friends that I met who are like working at Google, like these big companies, Amazon, Microsoft, all of those things that are really accomplished, and I'm still like kind of nowhere compared to them. It was like a difficult.
I'll disagree, but okay.
Yeah, I mean now I'll probably disagree as well. But back then it was like I wasn't making anything really, you know. So like it was really demoralizing. Whereas like
I can understand like your perspective, what you mentioned. That demoralizing aspect actually comes from the circle. If in your head they are more accomplished from the stereotypes that have been put down by your society as well, right?
Yeah.
So I can totally understand what you're
so
trying
it was
to
just
say.
difficult to kind of like overcome all those like hurdles and like obstacles in my head, and like kind of get to the point where I was like, you know what, this is what I want to do, and I don't care
exactly
what anybody else thinks, because this is
so that right there is your epiphanous moment where you're like, okay, I don't care what people think.
Yes, and I would say that was probably like sometime during summer last year, and that was also the time around the time where I finally was like in a good headspace. I started feeling good. I started actually seeing myself getting better with my skills as a photographer, and I'm still working on like getting better with like filmmaking and like being a videographer. I don't know what to call it, honestly. I feel weird calling myself
artist. Call yourself an artist.
That's what I do, but like calling myself like a filmmaker, because I'm not shooting on film. I'm shooting on a DSLR. It's all digital. So like calling myself a filmmaker seems weird. Just making videos.
So let me just take a step back when you mentioned that, okay, you're still exploring this phase, right? So no matter what you create, even photography is a creation, right? I feel everything that you make has three elements to it. One is creation, one is production, and one is marketing. It can be software, it can be movies, it can be literally anything.
I've definitely learned that over the year.
It can be even a simple piece of couch. You first create it, then you like produce it, and then you...
It's a bit, at the end of the day, everything's kind of like a business.
Exactly. So for photography and videography, right? Let's zone into the funnel that you are into, right? Let's get into the thing that you're super skillful at. So people who want to get into photography, right? Or videography, what does the creation phase look like? What does the production phase look like? And what does the marketing phase look like? Because in my head, right, let me tell you from a very naive perspective what these phases look like. Creation looks like to me like, okay, take your camera, take pictures normal, like it can be raw files, it can be JPEG. Production
definitely raw.
See, that's where I want like some clarity. The production for me is okay. Get onto Photoshop or Lightroom. Put out some LUTs. Put out some different filters that you want to edit, a little bit of landscape, light shades, contrast, and every other thing that are there for a picture. And then marketing is just putting it out on different social media platforms and putting out hashtags for it.
Excuse me.
What are the things that I miss in these three things, and what does it take for a person to be noticed in the photography or videography scene to actually bump out from a space which is super saturated?
Yeah.
Like literally everyone takes photos, right?
Yeah.
So what does it take for a person to be in these three trifectas to actually bump up, and how can you like be super useful in these things? Can you just shed
What
some
do you mean
light?
by useful?
Like how can you step your game up in creation, production, and marketing? Because I've seen your pictures like you do it before and after as well, right?
Oh yeah, sometimes.
What is your process like, and like how can a person learn that process?
So okay, let's see. Let's start with creation, right?
Yeah.
So it starts with whatever interests me. That's kind of where it kind of starts. Is like whatever interests me. Like so. If we're talking about in particular like my cityscape or like street photography that I do, just going around town, it's like whenever I'm out, I'm always kind of like scouting in a way. So like it starts with scouting. Any photo, if you're not shooting for a client, starts with scouting. So you're like scouting the location, scouting what you want to shoot, the subject you want to shoot.
And is it like whatever pleases your eye, or
to me at least? Yeah, it is. It's like whatever pleases my eye. Like. Being in Seattle, the skyline is beautiful, the Space Needle is beautiful, so that always kind of attracts my eye. It definitely pulls me in, and that's a great subject, is the skyline and Space Needle in particular, and like other buildings. That's kind of like what most of my shots on my Instagram are, is like of the Space Needle you can see, you know? So it starts with just scouting like locations, like what angle. Like I've taken a few different places around Seattle from where you can see the skyline or you can see the Space Needle, and finding new compositions. So it kind of starts from a composition, like from creation standpoint. And then once I'm done with scouting, or I guess composition comes in at the location when you're actually shooting, but like it starts with scouting, and once you have that in mind, you have the location in mind, it kind of goes, I go shoot, and then find new compositions at that location, and try to figure out. So like usually when I'm out, I'll probably end up taking like somewhere, I don't know, at one location probably like around 100 photos maybe.
Wait, 100? So this is something which I've heard from like many. Like I'll give you my experience from a wedding photographer.
Yeah.
Like my cousin was getting married, and the video that the person who he hired, he took like 10,000 photographs.
Yeah.
And then he asked, okay, out of these 10,000 photographs, just shortlist a couple of them.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do you do that? Like, is it because like you cannot find a perfect frame at all times? Like, for example, like if you found a location which is like stationary, for example, buildings and real estate are stationary.
Yeah, but
why do you
the
need to
weather
take,
always
like,
changes.
Sorry?
The weather is always changing.
Oh, like the lighting and all?
The lighting and all, and also like the composition I'm trying to go for, like how the scenery is. Because like, yeah, you're right. Like buildings are stationary. They're not going to move. But the buildings are part of the picture. Like they're the subject, but they're not always the full, like they're not the primary. Okay, there might be the primary subject, but they're not the only subject. Like the location and the weather in the photo, to at least me, it could be different for any photographer, but to me is also part of the subject, because it adds to how the subject looks. If it's a sunny day in Seattle, which is very rare,
literally 4 months of the year,
exactly, you're gonna get a different view of the skyline, how the skyline looks at sunset compared to if it's overcast. Or so it's like,
okay, let me stop you there. So can you not like make those themes out there in the production space?
You can, but then it's not true to, like, it's not like real. At least to me, I like shooting like I don't like editing my photos I don't like editing my photos to a point where they seem fake. You can tell that something's not real. I don't really like switching out the skies or like messing around a lot in Photoshop. I barely use Photoshop for my like street photography. I'll sometimes use it to like enhance my editing process. There are some things that are just better in Photoshop than Lightroom, but I like to stay true to like the photo I took. Because like how I like to think of my photos is that I take a photo, I shoot in RAW, and the RAW file is just it's very what's the word,
Super heavy?
Fade.
Fade. What do you mean fade?
Not fade. What's the word I'm looking for?
Super heavy?
Well, it is a heavy file, but a raw file is flat. That's the word. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like flat. You know.
Okay.
I take a photo. It's a flat photo, and then I kind of paint over it in Lightroom. That's how I see it. Cause
so that is where you come from the creation to the production phase.
Yeah, exactly. Right? So like I create at a location, take some photos, take whatever how many photos at a location, and then I come back, put them in Lightroom, and then select the ones I actually really like.
How do you select them?
It's just like going through like most of them, just seeing like, okay, there's like this one particular thing that I don't like in this photo. It could be like how there was like how, I don't know. Okay, let's take an example. Like I'm shooting at Kerry Park.
Okay.
And I'm shooting the skyline. And there are people in the frame, kind of in the foreground, you know.
Okay.
So like I don't like one photo where this couple is kind of sitting. I want them to move, so I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna just keep clicking pictures because I still want to take pictures.
Correct.
Or they're moving around, so like just going through, like seeing which one I like.
Again, something that pleases your eye.
Yeah, something that pleases my eye. That kind of like brings me in, because if it brings me in, I feel like it'll bring other people in too.
Okay.
You know, so just selecting the one that I like the best, and then picking that, and then starting the editing process.
Okay.
So then I kind of start like the production side of it, which you're saying, where I'll start just messing around with all the settings, like the exposure, the highlights, the shadows, and then messing with the tone curve, and just kind of messing around with all those settings is how I'm like painting the picture. And then at the end, I have a picture which is kind of like completely different from what the actual raw file was.
Question: how easy or how difficult is it to learn Lightroom or different editing Photoshop or different editing softwares that there are out in the world? Because there are so many photographers, and if you look at, like, I'll mention two people, Sam Coulter and Peter McKinnon, right? Their Instagram profiles are so different than each other, totally different. Yeah. Right? So how do you get into that editing phase?
It's just something that I feel like, I guess you have to be like passionate about. Maybe that's part of it. But then also, like, it's not difficult to learn, I would say, because like I did it.
Okay.
So
you can watch like YouTube tutorials,
because that's how I did. I learned through watching YouTube videos of like tutorials, and there's so many out there. Okay. There's just libraries of tutorials out there. So I wouldn't say it's hard. It is time consuming.
Okay.
So that can make it hard, and if you're not if you're not truly passionate about it and interested in it, it can seem hard. Okay. You know, it's just like it just comes down to like how much
passionate you are,
how much you want to spend your time, and how much effort you want to give into it.
Okay.
Like if you're just looking to like, because like Lightroom has like its own like whatchamacallit, kind of
LUTs.
Filter, yeah. So they have their like filters or presets. That's what they're called. They have their own presets, and you can buy people's presets. Too. And if you just want to use that and slap it on as a filter, you can do that. You know, but then it's not. I don't think it's your photo.
Your creation.
Yeah, I don't think it's your creation as much. Like, sure, you took the photo, so at that point it is your creation. But like in terms of editing it, it's I don't know. I don't feel like I did as much in it. So overall, I would say it's hard, but it can be done.
Can be done.
Yeah. So let's time consuming.
Okay, so let's get into marketing, right?
Yeah.
So marketing is something which is super important, because if you let's take you as an example.
Yeah.
If you're getting recognized by people like Andrew Schultz, people like different comedians out in the world, right? The fact that they can recognize you is because you're able to market your content out in the world, and they know that, okay, this person has taken this object and made it to this particular quality, and they trust you with your production.
Yeah.
The fact that you're taking pictures of Andrew Schultz, there are like 1,000 photographers in Seattle, right? The fact that they chose you, there must have been a marketing element or a networking element to it.
It was more networking, I would say, than marketing.
So how important is networking for marketing, and how much marketing actually enables you to be successful in this profession? And this is something which always boggles my mind for artists specifically. Yeah. Because for different other avenues, like for doctors, for engineers, right? You have to do marketing at a certain level, but it's
at
not
the entry level.
It's not a very core competency that you need to have. But for artists, that's the prime key skill that you need to have.
Yeah, and it's something I'm still learning. Because like I'm new to it, so it's hard to sell myself to people. you know.
So how do you convince people that, hey, I'm the best person for the job. I'll provide you quality that no one else can. It can be discipline. It can be your work ethic. It can be the quality of pictures that you take. Anything.
I don't know.
It can be your charming personality as well, right?
Maybe it's my personality. I would say, because like I don't know what it is.
Okay.
So maybe it is just me.
Okay.
That it is, because like So speaking of like Andrew Schultz,
Uh-huh.
I got that gig just through DMing his videographer.
Okay.
Vala.
Uh-huh.
I just messaged him asking, hey, I know you guys are in town. If you need an extra photographer, let me know. And that was it.
Okay.
So
reaching out to people, which not
so
many
it's just
people
networking.
do that.
It's just networking, I guess, right? It's like just putting yourself out there. So that's all I've been doing, and I've gone. Last weekend, I did 2 shows for 2 other comedians, Sean Patton and Maj Jobriani.
Again, the same concept, like networked around.
Yeah, both. Like I just messaged them on Instagram, being like, "Hey, I am a photographer, Seattle-based photographer. I would love to shoot your shows. Let me know if you need a photographer and somebody to record your shows." And that was it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and that's how I've gotten my comedy gigs that I've gotten. I've shot for like 4 comedians now. And comedy space is something that I want to get into.
Okay.
I love comedy. So I like kind of want to work in that industry as a photographer and like filmmaker. So it's like something that's kind of how like my idea of like getting into photography and filmmaking kind of like came to be, was probably like looking at how all the comedians nowadays put all of their stuff like online, and they need somebody to do that for them. And that was a way for me to like see myself getting into photography and like filmmaking. I saw an in to kind of get into an industry through that, but to be able to do that, I needed to learn the skills, which I didn't have. Because like I saw this and like I wanted to get into that space a couple of years ago, like in 2020 or 2019, when I really started getting into a lot of like listening to a lot of podcasts, like comedy podcasts and stuff. But at that time, I didn't have those skills. So
makes sense, yeah. And then you always have to like prepare yourself to get to that level where people are. Like you cannot just like show up and like not have skills.
And like you'll fail.
Exactly.
I've been there too.
Yeah,
so it's like
that's certainly relatable.
Yeah.
And the fact that I am also trying to like get into my ventures in that way. For example, I met Vala and like I messaged him, hey, like thank you so much. Like I ended up giving him, so I came out.
Wait, so you know Vala?
No, so I texted him. I'm like, hey, I am a podcaster as well.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I became a podcaster is because of Akash thing.
Oh,
so
no
I'm like,
way.
hey, if I can like meet you and Andrew and everyone for like a couple of minutes, it'll be amazing. He said like I wasn't able to meet them, but I gave them my merchandise, like Golan's Garage, and like I was like, hey, just like for all you guys, if you can like wear it sometime, it'll be amazing.
Oh, yeah, that's
and
sweet.
They have all my merchandise right now.
That's sweet.
So that is how I'm marketing myself as well.
Yeah.
Like just through networking, hitting people through DMs. One interesting last question that I want to touch upon about you is, I feel that literally every person's life on earth is like a movie. Okay. And the reason I want to bring this up is because you're a filmmaker and you'll be able to relate to this. Every person's arc has an act 1, act 2, act 3. For you, I feel act 1 just finished, where you realize that, hey, I want to get into this zone, and you can see a North Star vision as getting into filmmaking. What does act 2 and act 3 of Sarthak look like in coming years? If you can like tell the world. And manifest yourself. Maybe if you like look back at this video 10 years later and like, hey, whatever I said actually came out to be true.
I don't know. I kind of take each day at its like day by day basis. So I just know that I want to grow in the comedy scene for sure, as somebody known for photography and kind of videos and stuff.
So do you see yourself as somewhat like a filmmaker who directs films or produces shows, or somewhat like Sam Colder or Peter McInnes who tell a story with their pictures and their videos? Which direction? I don't know, and it's open right now. That's why it's like hard for me to kind of put a finger on like which direction I want to go. I do know that I want to probably make a movie or a film at some point. So that's something that I definitely see myself probably being a part of, like the act 2 you say. But I don't know. It's just I just see myself working as a filmmaker and a photographer,
at a higher level.
Okay.
I would say.
And what about Act 3? When you've become an accomplished filmmaker?
Oh, I don't see myself ever stopping in this. Like, this is something I
No. So when I said Act 3, right, I mean like after you've become an. So for example, like,
after I'm established, you're saying?
after you're super. So what I feel like every established person, like let's take
Yeah.
podcasting for example, like
Sure.
just because you're in the podcast, Joe Rogan is one of the most established podcasters.
Sure, yeah.
What he does in his Act 3 is he promotes people so that, and he
But he's
celebrates
always
people.
done that though. Like,
Last 12 years, right? But
Yeah.
right now he celebrates people. He's never jealous of people, right?
Yeah.
He tries to bring up more people to the scene so that he can push it out to the scene.
Yeah.
So what does your Act 3 look like? Will you be coming up with, say, a film school, say a school for educating people, or like will you come up with a place where you want to promote other people so that they can also reach the heights that you have reached?
That's something that I already kind of
Are doing?
I'm trying to do. That's something
Okay.
I always want to do. It's
Okay.
like promote others. Like, I believe in helping others because that'll come back and help you.
Okay.
So
I totally agree with this. Like,
Yeah.
you cannot grow alone. You never can grow
It's
alone.
it's very. I don't think anybody can be a lone wolf and
Exactly.
just survive.
Uh-huh.
You need others to help you, and
And like have a non-zero sum mentality. Like if
Yeah.
you help just for your benefit, like you're a taker, then it doesn't
Yeah,
work. Like you have to be a
exactly.
mutual networking relationship that you're
Yeah.
adding value.
yeah, exactly. So I just see myself doing that for sure. Like, I don't feel comfortable right now. Kind of being so young in my career and being so young in my skills that to teach others, I don't feel like I'm in that place of authority.
But still you have that vision of doing that someday.
Yeah, for sure. Like, probably like maybe a couple of years down the road, I could like start helping others and like teaching, like making videos and like tutorials and stuff. Maybe, but I don't know. It all depends. I know that I'll always be helping. I don't know if I'll be like making tutorials in particular. Like, you know,
But promoting, like I get the gist.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does 2022 look like for Sarthak?
2022 looks like hopefully a lot more gigs with comedians coming in town. And other than that, growing my real estate work as well, doubling that compared to what I did last year. And yeah, just growing my business and putting my name out there. Basically, that's the goal for 2022.
That's amazing. Awesome. Sarthak, it was wonderful having you.
Thanks
like
for having
your
me.
story was so amazing. Like I've never spoken to a person who's full-fledgedly a photographer or a videographer. Like
Yeah.
I've met them, but I've never had the conversation of how they got into the field and what do they actually do, what the process is. And I feel like I learned something from this conversation, and that's the whole point of my podcast. I want to learn something or the other in every conversation that I have. But it was pleasure having you. People, you can follow Sarthak on like these particular social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, if possible. No?
I do have a YouTube
Okay,
channel.
so YouTube is well.
But it's very few. I think they have like few videos on it and just some reels.
But still,
Yeah.
if you want to like hit him up like for your
Yes.
business inquiries
Anybody-
for footage or for
yeah.
any collaboration as well, just send him a Instagram message and he'll reply to you. But it was again amazing talking to you. Super appreciate you coming to the show.
Thank you for having me, bro.
And sharing a story with us. People, till next time, peace. And please consider subscribing. Thank you. That is something which I came up with like this afternoon itself. I was thinking for a very long time, like how can I make a wordplay out of selfies and shellfish? Because I was at the Hibachi dinner like last night celebrating one of my friend's birthday, and that is where the idea struck. Like, I'll write it down. And the whole gig of like me, the whole stick of me doing podcasting and everything is eventually me having the courage to go do an open mic and eventually get into comedy, because I feel like I have that comedy stick in me. I just need to like improve on how to create an act, how to set up a joke, and how to punch it out as well. So I'm like, okay, if this is the preparation, the best thing is out to like have dad jokes initially, which I can like practice it on people and like guests that I bring in and go from there. But